bring the, we'll switch it one way or the other. Doesn't matter to me. That is a good shape.
I'll give it Mr. Will.
I probably should stand because I'll look as tall as Shaq when I'm sitting.
Well, in fact, while y'all, let's get a picture. Let's get something of both y'all standing there.
This is like, really?
I got that shot.
Really feel short.
It's engaged. Here we got this.
You guys,
Yeah, that's,
Thank you.
that's a tall chair.
Thank you.
Chanda Rubin, not only one of the great women's tennis players in the modern era, but no doubt the greatest tennis player, male or female, in the state's history. From Lafayette, won 2 Grand Slam titles, a Wimbledon junior singles title, and the Australia Open juniors title, ranked as high as 6th in the world in singles, 9 in doubles. A dominant player for many years. Her presenter tomorrow night is her good friend Zena Garrison, yet another tremendously accomplished player. And Chanda is a person who has been an Acadiana person all her life. She's never gone away from home, and she came back today from Wimbledon, where she was working doing television commentary. Came across the pond to have you guys ask questions. Hall of Famer Chanda Rubin.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say first that it is an honor and a privilege to be inducted, and I did, come back from Wimbledon early. It was definitely that important to me, and I just feel such roots here in Louisiana. I was born in Lafayette, lived in Carencro, grew up in Carencro, but I always say Lafayette because nobody ever knew what Carencro was, and they couldn't even pronounce it when I'd, say I was from Carencro. So Lafayette kind of stuck. But my family's here. I grew up playing my first tennis tournament in Lafayette. I still go back to that same park now and hit balls on occasion. I've played all over the world, but kind of like what Shaq said in some of his interview, it's something about Louisiana that you don't get anywhere else in the world, anywhere else in the country. And once you have roots here, once you feel a connection, it's always there. And I can say certainly, those roots are deep, but it's kept me grounded as well through the ups and downs of a professional career. I turned pro when I was 15, played for 16 years, and through it all, this was just the place I always came back to, I always called home. And of course, having a strong family had a lot to do with that. And I think that was so important for me, especially starting at a young age. The class, the other inductees, it is a great honor to be among those great athletes. And Louisiana just has some of the greatest athletes that you'll find in any state. And I think for that reason, it really and truly is a wonderful honor and joy to be here this weekend. Questions?
Louisiana's not known as a tennis state. Was that hard for you, growing up, as far as when you were really young, playing juniors and so forth?
No, it really wasn't. I didn't really think about things like that. I was fortunate because I had there was a tennis program at Red Laurel's in Lafayette where I basically grew up playing after, kind of starting when I was 6 and a half or so, with organized lessons. I started at Red Laurel's in that program at 7 years old, and there was a great group of other tennis players from different areas, some of the best players in the area that came there to train there. So I was lucky to have that kind of support from the coaches, and also the opportunity to play against other kids. So I never felt deprived or like I was less than in a tennis sense. I never felt like, I came in, to a tournament, with anything less than everything I needed to win. And that's how I approached it. And I mean, we literally arrive at a tournament. My parents would put us in the van and we'd drive wherever we needed to go, 3, 4, 5, even 9 hours to Atlanta. I'd sleep most of the time, and I'd wake up when we got there and get my rackets, my sticks, and jump right on the court. I mean, it just was not a thought that I didn't have everything I needed, to compete.
Chanda, you said that you were at Wimbledon. What do you think about all of the numerous upsets that have happened with Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer, and all those guys? What was your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the first 3 days, I mean, were among the craziest at a Grand Slam that I've ever seen, and certainly the Wednesday, the third day, where Sharapova went out, Azarenka didn't even play, Federer went out that day. I mean, the list goes on, and I think the shockwaves are still being felt a little bit, but there are some British players still in the draw, so it's not going over too badly, but it definitely. I mean, I've never seen anything like it, and the way it's been happening with people falling and getting injured in some cases on the grass and just struggling. I don't think it has anything to do with the grass per se. Maybe just a little bit unlucky, but it's certainly. I can't say I picked a good time to go and commentate, but it certainly has been interesting.
Tell us about your last 24 hours.
What time is it now? I'm trying.
It's about 11 p.m.
Okay, my last 24. Well, I finished up in studio, so at kind of the start of that 24. Finished up in studio probably 2 or 3 hours into that. Actually was. I'm going to go back up a little bit. I was actually in the Royal Box watching tennis, so I started my day watching tennis on center court with Her Royal Highness. Camilla Parker Bowles was there, and Margaret Court, and a whole host of really great people. So enjoyed that experience, but that's kind of an all-day thing. So that half of the day kind of went, and then I went into the studio to commentate and do some matches, talk a little bit about some of the matches that had already happened. Then went home, got in a little bit of sleep, packed, got on the plane, and then I've spent the other half of the day kind of traveling here to get to Natchitoches. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind, but certainly it's been a great experience. And as I said, I mean, this was definitely something meaningful enough for me, to really do everything I could to be here.
What about the state of tennis as a whole for the U.S.? Women's side you have Serena, who's dominating, but on the men's side you don't have that top person.
As an American players, yeah. I think, that's kind of the question, and that's been over the last 2-3 years for sure. I mean, that's the big push, and I'm on the USGA board now. This is my second term, third year, so I'm kind of getting those questions as well. And it's tough because you can't just snap your fingers and create players. And unfortunately, we've had some great players retire, a group of great players that the U.S. had, and they've retired, the last being Andy Roddick, and you just haven't had anybody to fill that gap on the men's side. We're fortunate with Serena still out there playing. Venus is struggling, but we do have some young American women coming up. The question is who's going to break through and really push to that top level, and you just don't know. At the end of the day, you have to give as many kids an opportunity to play, and I think that's one of the things that is hopefully getting a little bit better, where we're getting more diverse kids involved in tennis, where we're reaching out into different communities and then giving the local communities, the local clubs, the local coaches the opportunity and the best tools to help those young players reach the higher and higher levels. I mean, this is a huge country, and it really takes everybody kind of making an effort, and you don't know. You just have to put the racket in kids' hands. And
with all of the energy you have, when are you running for president?
That won't happen right now. I like kind of doing different things, and as a tennis player in particular, you're so single-minded, and it's an individual sport, so everything is focused on you and this one thing. And now that I've retired, I've been able to do some different things. One of them has been on the USGA board. Another has been broadcasting. I've recently finished my degree, went back to school. Didn't get married. That isn't on the list yet. But I've been fortunate where I do have the freedom to kind of do some different things and really expand, and it's been fun, and I've grown a lot as a result, and hopefully I can just continue to do that. So.
Shane, can you comment on? Shane, can you comment on the fact that the induction class and just how elite this group is, with guys like Shaq and Tommy, and you being a part of that? What's that mean to you?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to talk about myself per se, but it definitely is an honor. I mean, the group I think is phenomenal, and Shaq. I mean, who is he, right? I mean, nobody knows. Nobody knows much about him. I think for me, you know, I've always kind of looked at myself in isolation a little bit. I mean, that's just kind of the nature of the sport. But when you are a part of a group like this, it really kind of brings it home all over again. And you realize just how special it was, first and foremost, to be able to play a sport that you love, be able to play it at a high level, be able to make a living and have a, you know, a good life and a good career. And then to come back and be recognized among a group of athletes from different sports. I mean, great athletes in their own right, to be recognized among your peers, so to speak. I mean, there's nothing like it, and it's extremely special, and that's what I appreciate most and what I'll enjoy most about the weekend.
You touched on it. You guys just took a photo out there in front of the museum. I don't know if you got a chance to see it.
No, I didn't.
To go into something that has 50, 60 years of dreams behind and see it become reality, just the thought of going in as the first class to be inducted inside.
In the new museum, yes. I mean, I'm anxious to see it, to walk through and just get a sense. You know, I know a bit of the history of Louisiana and its athletes, but certainly nowhere near what I'd like to know. And so it'll be a great experience just walking through the museum, seeing, of course, everything new and you know, ready to go, but also kind of looking at the history and then understanding that I'll be a part of that. I mean, it's a surreal feeling, but at the same time, you want to just soak it in and enjoy it and, you know, all those things. I'm mad I didn't bring my camera phone. I'm terrible at taking pictures, and I always kick myself afterwards and say, I didn't get pictures. So I'm going to probably go to some of y'all and say, email me some pictures of the weekend. But, I mean, I think those are the things you kind of look back on, and they become special moments in what was a special career.
Talk a little bit about your career and what are the products and things that you think were extremely special. What do you look back on now that you've had a little time to reflect and think of really big highlights?
You know, I think, you know, the first big breakthrough really when I was a teenager, 18, 19, kind of breaking through into the top 10, getting to the quarters of the French, the semis of the Australian, winning the Australian Open doubles, you know, that kind of being the first experiences of that type of success, believing in yourself but not quite being there until you actually accomplish those goals. You know, that's something I'll remember. And of course, the people I've been able to play with, my doubles partners, I've had great experiences you know, with them, getting to the finals of the U.S. Open doubles and playing Venus and Serena, beating them in the semis, playing Serena on center court at Wimbledon, losing that match, and then coming back and beating her a few weeks later in L.A. and winning that event. I mean, you know, winning tournaments on the tour is not easy, and so those were special moments, and they occurred after I had been injured and had surgeries and had to come back after falling in the rankings because of those injuries. So a lot of different, you know, different components that I kind of look back on and really appreciate, you know, the journey as much as anything. I've been mixed, kind of hopping around a little bit. I did some with ESPN and their interactive coverage. I'm working some with CBS Sports during the U.S. Open, and I also do some work at the Australian, and I've done work with the Tennis Channel. So, kind of a broadcast mutt right now. Well, the one I've done the best at is the Australian. I always enjoyed Paris, though, and it's kind of interesting on the red clay because that wouldn't have initially been a surface that I thought I'd have success on, you know, certainly when I was a young player, but it became one of my favorite events. I think because it was a challenge, and at a certain point I just accepted the challenge of it, and it meant more to me to kind of achieve in that sense. So definitely those, and then the U.S. Open for different reasons. I mean, it's kind of the cliche because I'm an American, but it was such a rush, you know, center court, Arthur Ashe Stadium. I played the first match there when they opened the stadium, and in his name, and also, you know, getting to the semis, playing Venus and center court. I mean, there's so many great moments there in New York, and there's nothing like playing under the lights.
Talk about when you knew that you could compete internationally. I know that going to Wimbledon and title. Was there a point before that you said, I can hang with all these Ovos and these people from all over the world, I fit?
I think probably the moment you know, the first tournament that I played, I was in the qualifying. It was a tournament in Phoenix, and I had to play 3 matches to qualify to get into the main draw, and had a kind of a tough final qualifying round against a crafty veteran player, and got through that, and ended up getting to the finals of that tournament after qualifying. And it was a smaller event, but it just kind of clicked there. It let me know that I really had the ability, and it was there. I mean, I kind of felt it before, but until you actually go through it and you kind of you accomplish what your goals are, you don't really fully kind of see it. And I saw it then, and went from there. I mean, very quickly got into the top 100, and then from there it just seemed like a steady climb.
If Chanda Rubin hadn't been a tennis player, what did you want to be?
It kind of varied. Initially, I wanted to be a teacher. My mom was a teacher. That's probably, very cliche. But I, used to go and help her at school in some of her classes occasionally. So that was initially, and then after that, I thought about being a doctor. Yeah, but then I said it's too much school, so okay, I nixed that. Zena was one of the people I looked up to, and Steffi. Her game really was, that was kind of my ideal game. Minus the slice backhand, the one-handed backhand, but Steffi. And also Yvonne Lindell. That's kind of weird, but I loved him. I loved the way he played. I mean, the way he attacked the ball. I mean, he just hit everything. And, he had this kind of straight demeanor on court. And some people probably call that boring. I was weird. I actually liked it. And, every so often you kind of see this sense of humor, but it was very dry that he had. So for some reason, Yvonne Lindell.
Lindell, after his tennis career, became a great golfer.
Right.
What about that? You do anything other than tennis athletically now?
I am, no. I'm struggling to stay on the tennis court a little bit. I do want to pick up golf, so that will be kind of my next goal. But, I mean, it's tremendous. I mean, go the way he's done, go to playing golf, and then now, being a coach out there, which is completely, different. But he's been able to really translate his knowledge as a tennis player into these different areas, and I think that is sort of the greatest gift and ability. So it'd be interesting, to see if I would go into coaching. I'd consider it.
Now, I asked Shaquille if he was a guy who played some tennis. Mm-hmm. So I know your brother was a very good basketball player.
Yes.
Did you used to play ball against him? What's your basketball?
I wouldn't call it like playing ball. I mean, we'd get out in the driveway. I'd try to, make a couple of moves here and there, but I wasn't good, And once I kind of picked up tennis, I kind of became a little bit single-minded. So we'd played, in the neighborhood and for fun, but never anything close to being organized. And I think he would laugh if he saw me try to, dribble and do a crossover move. He just think I'm ridiculous. I mean, yeah, I love watching it. I love watching. I got into watching football, so I'm following all the teams. I have my Sunday ticket, and I'm on the couch on Sundays telling my mom, don't call. I'm not getting food today because the games are on. But, I've definitely kind of picked up a love for other sports, even though I didn't play any.
Well, it's interesting that in this class, obviously, you're one of the fewer women's athletes ever come out of the state, and maybe the first great woman athlete in the state is who also was a multi-title tennis holder.
Right,
Have you had any thought?
I hadn't. Until you just said it, I had not. That's going to be part of, I really want to kind of soak in the history like that. And, I think that's what's fascinating. And we don't get a chance to do that enough when we get sort of caught up in our own careers. But this is a great opportunity for me. I'm definitely going to soak it all in.
What got you interested in tennis?
My parents, they picked up the sport after college, once they were, deep into their careers, and they started playing because of friends and just loved it. They started playing local tournaments. They'd get up and play on the weekends. When they built their house, we moved into that house. I was 2 years old. They built it out in Karen Crow, a little bit in the country. They built a swimming pool and a tennis court. And so we had a court there. So I'd wake up weekend mornings. If nobody was in the house, I knew everybody was on the tennis court. And so it just kind of started from there.
Well, can I take a picture
Sure, and if anybody can take a, I'm sure some people in here can take a picture.
She's been proposed to, now she's getting.
Thank you.